I used the term repertoire loosely. I think I had 3 songs, but there was one in French that was my favorite.
I want to hear it.
Okay, it was from, I think it's from the musical South Pacific, and it went a little like this. Dites-moi pourquoi la vie est belle. Dites-moi pourquoi la vie est gaie. Dites-moi pourquoi, chère mademoiselle, est-ce que parce que vous m'aimez?
Yeah, that's lovely.
That was my big moment.
I'm Dr. Larry Burchett, and as I see every day in the ER, life can change in a moment. Here on this show, we tell the stories that matter most, after which we are never the same. I'm excited about today's guest, Keri, Kelsey, singer and host. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
So I want to jump right into your moment, but tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am currently hosting the longest running open mic in Los Angeles, which is a really fun group of people. We've been around about 19 years now.
19
years. So that's a lot of talking for me every week.
And you've done this for 19 years, and it's singing or comedy, or what kind of open mic is it?
It's a singer's open mic, so I open with a song, and then my responsibility is to fill the time while the singer is talking to our amazing musicians, and they are telling them what they want, with their song. And so I want people to be still having a good time and be entertained, and hopefully stick around so that the last singer has somebody to sing for.
So you perform in more than one way.
I guess that's right. And I was telling somebody recently that most of my humor is accidental at the open mic, but I try my best to be entertaining, and it's easier because it's a family, it's a group of people, it's a lot of the same core group of people every week. And then last week I called it International Week. We had a girl from Russia, we had a girl from Italy, we had a guy from Hawaii, and Colorado, which is not really international, but nevertheless.
And how long have you done this?
I took over completely 10 years ago, so I've been doing every week. Prior to that, I was co-hosting every other week.
Wow, got some experience under your belt.
Yeah, a little bit of talking experience, but that was sort of, I was one of those people that always got in trouble for talking in school, and it's sort of always been a thing. So I just found a good outlet for it. Thankfully.
Talker.
Yes, I am.
All right, talker, singer, and host. So I'm curious what your moment is.
Well, in listening to you talk about, my gosh, your experiences in the ER, mine feels ridiculous because mine was circus. It's like the antithesis. But coming from a background where we had planned vacations, we did the same thing every year. We went to the family reunion and we planned it a year in advance. I never did anything sort of spur of the moment, but I did kind of spur of the moment go, I want to live in New York. I've always wanted to live in New York. And after having serious panic attacks for quite some time, I picked up and moved to New York. And while I was there, met a trapeze artist with the Big Apple Circus. And I was starting to head back to Florida, where I was living at the time before New York, and was looking at going back to the same old thing. Trapeze artist, Florida again, same old thing. And I like this lifestyle. We hit it off very quickly. In less than 6 months, I married him and took off traveling with the circus.
No kidding.
It was huge for me, huge.
So wait a minute, so give me a little more setting. So how old were you? You said you were living kind of a very planned life in Florida. What was going on?
Yeah, when I moved to New York shortly after college. So I was living in New York and doing some modeling and just enjoying the city and
How old were you?
auditioning. Like 22, 23, something like that.
Early 20s.
Yeah, very early 20s. And I had gone to college with my now ex-husband's brother, and I had no idea what his family did. And I don't know if you have ever lived in New York, but if you move across town, you lose all your friends. Like they'll go from 1st to 110th, but heaven forbid, they should cross town. So I wasn't seeing anybody except one friend who had to come from Queens anyway. And I said, what do you never come see me, what's going on? He said, I'm working, I'm selling tickets at the Big Apple Circus, you should come visit. And I'm like, what am I gonna do at the circus? And he said, well, Jose's here, who became my brother-in-law. And I said, what on earth is he doing at the circus? He said he does PR for his family. And I'm like, okay, what does his family do? He said they're trapeze artists. I'm like, get out of here. I'd gone to college with this guy for 4 years. How could I not know this? But you're so isolated in college, right? So I went up and visited, and they invited me to come back to this big gala where they have kind of soap stars, and it's dinner and dancing. And I had only seen one circus in my life and did not particularly enjoy it. And I thought, I'm going to have to sit through the circus, but I'm a starving New Yorker. It's free dinner. I love dancing. I'll go. And right when I got there, I was so enamored with these trailers, and they make a row. They call it Trailer Row, and it's the coziest thing. And they were right next to the Met in the area called Damrush Park there.
So this is in Manhattan?
Manhattan, like at Lincoln Center.
The circus is in Manhattan.
In Manhattan, and like the center, the best location in Manhattan, right next, Avery Fisher Hall, which is now Geffen, I think, the Met, and the ballet, and there's the circus in the back. So I went back, and I did have a theater background, and this was a one-ring European-style circus, and I fell in love with that. I fell in love with him. I fell in love with the whole shebang, and I went, this looks like fun. I'm not so sure the marriage will work, but this looks like fun. And I was an old-fashioned Southern girl. There was no way that I was going to just take off traveling, so the marriage had to happen.
So wait a minute. So I'm imagining you said I fell in love with this and this and this. Like, take me back into this moment. When did you fall in love with it? Was it like the first sight that you saw it? Was when you were afterwards having cocktail? Like when did that happen?
Basically, I knocked on the trailer door to tell them that I was there, and my soon-to-be husband opened it, and I went, wow.
And what is his name?
His name's Richie.
Richie.
They were the Flying Guyonas.
Okay, so he was a trapeze artist.
Trapeze artist.
Okay.
And there's actually a documentary about them now called The Flight Fantastic, about the whole family. And so he opened the door in this fabulous coat and a scarf, and I found out later it was my brother-in-law's coat that he borrowed. But I was like, whoa, and there was an immediate attraction.
So Richie made this impression
yes,
when you opened the door.
When he opened the door to let me in.
Yeah.
And it was kind of instantaneous. It was one of those rare moments. And so he said,
like love at first sight.
It really was kind of, which I don't necessarily believe in. I believe that you can look at somebody and say, I have the potential to fall in love with this person, and you can feel that there's something special, but I don't think you can really love them until, I think men, it's a different kind of sensation. For women.
I'm like, are you
right,
kidding me?
yeah.
I know that.
I think it's a different thing, but for women, it takes us a while, to
So
get to
what
that
happened
point.
with Richie when he opened that door?
So he opened the door, and I came into this trailer, which was like a small New York apartment. It was beautiful. And we talked for a little bit, and he said, let me walk you into the show. So he walked me into the show and put me in a nice spot, and he kept coming and checking on me during the show, which I loved. I thought that was really,
Give
cool.
me a little meter of, it hits 10 and you're like, I'm gonna join the circus. I want to know where, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like 1 to 10. Oh, I met him and it was a 5, and then I saw it was a 6 and a 7, and then it was a 10, and I was
Right.
like, I'm in.
Well, it was meeting. I knew instantaneously that wow, there's something special here.
With him, so let me break that up.
Yeah.
With him, was this kind of like the fall in love at first sight thing, and this is about him, or was this you were falling in love with the circus, or?
I think
Can you
that's
separate
a question,
that?
That's a question I've always asked myself. Like, which did I like more? Was it him, and was it a combination? But there was definitely an attraction with him way before I even saw the show. So there was definitely chemistry. When he walked me into the show, I knew that something was. I didn't even care about seeing the show. I was surprised that I liked it. And so when he would come and just check on me even before the show started, and we'd talk a little bit, then the show started,
Yeah.
and I was amazed. I was enthralled. It was such a fabulous show, and it was one ring. It was European. They were the finale. When their act came out to do the finale, that sealed the deal. First of all, he's in white tights, just like a ballet dancer, but not a ballet dancer. Like a more athletic person. And the way they changed places on the pedestal, they have this little bitty pedestal, and they did it with such flair, and they have this movement they call it a style, where you do this. That's the only thing I can do in the circus. And he would do that, and they would switch places like really quickly, and their act was they had such charisma, and the act was phenomenal, and I that sealed the deal. That was the moment where I was like, good grief, he is stunning, this is gorgeous, and I love this lifestyle. So I think he drove me home, and we kept seeing each other like constantly.
You're still in New York, and he's still there at the circus.
Exactly. And I was set to move home. I had come, the only reason I was there was because I was moving home at Thanksgiving, and my mother said to me, look, you have a chance to spend the holidays in New York. I would love to do that. She said, just stay. And I said, but I can't come back twice. She goes, I'll get your ticket. So I went home to Thanksgiving. I came back. The day after I got home is when I went to the circus. I met him. I kept postponing my trip.
After Thanksgiving?
Right after Thanksgiving. And I delayed until I moved home on Christmas Eve. And I was living in Lakeland, Florida. He was from Venice, Florida. So he said, because I had procrastinated, let me put all your stuff on the truck, I'll take it all home for you. So I only got some of it packed up. And he dropped it off in Florida for me, and we just commuted back and forth for a couple of hours. So I met him the day after Thanksgiving, and I got married April 14th. I lie and say 6 months, but it wasn't.
Of months later.
Yes.
So this is, so the plot thickens and the story gets, kind of revealed. This is half, you're running away with the circus, but it sounds like you're running away with Richie.
Well, no, he was the one that I married to travel with the circus. It was him. Oh, running away with him.
You know what I mean? Like, it was about him more than the circus.
Yes.
It's not like you saw it and you're like, oh man, I want to flip and I want to do the trapeze and everything. It's like, it was
definitely him. And because I knew his brother, we were all sort of dating together. Like, the three of us would go out in New York dancing, and then we'd go get breakfast. And you skip over all of that. Is anybody in your family a serial murderer? Are you, is everything okay? I knew them. I knew him already. I knew, so it felt comfortable. Right, exactly. Yeah. So it felt comfortable, and I felt safe, except for the circus part. That terrified me.
So hang on. So I want to get into the circus again in a minute. Paint me a little more of the picture of you beforehand in Florida or when you were in New York, where this is, I'm wondering, where were you at that you weren't dating anybody? What was going on with you where you were open to this in that moment? Do you know what I mean?
Right. When I moved across town, I was working for a very unusual man who was the sculptor of the Barbie, and he was in a lawsuit with Mattel. He was like a toy guy. And his name was Jack Ryan. And I was working for him, and the situation was very unusual. It was like his Gal Friday, and I would, do all the errands for him. And I realized I'm in a situation that just didn't feel normal, and I wasn't doing what I had come to New York to do originally. I was lonely.
You came originally to New York to perform, or
to model and perform and enjoy the, and I had gotten away from that a lot.
Okay. And
And I was on the east side of town, which was not as cozy and not as friendly, and I was extremely lonely, and I just said, I gotta go home. I'm missing my family. I'm lonely. I can't distinguish what's normal, what's not anymore. And so I was just ready to go. And I hadn't really dated anybody much. And Manhattan's probably more difficult than trying to date somebody in LA, really. It's a tough place to meet people and date. I know a lot of people do, but I wasn't working like a steady job where I would meet people and I wasn't around people. It's lonely, you see hundreds of people all day long and maybe not even say hello.
Yeah.
So it's somehow isolating even though you're in this crowded place. So I was done and ready to go home and lonely and ready to sort of move on to something else. But I thought I was going back to the familiar. I didn't necessarily want to do that. I had been engaged before I moved to New York. Mm-hmm. We broke off the engagement. When I was moving home, I realized that we would probably start dating again. I knew that wasn't the best option for me. So I was kind of worried about what I would do and what would happen in Lakeland, Florida. Going from New York back to this small town. So I met Richie. There was the instant attraction. The lifestyle was exciting. And I just felt like I had to do it. Like something pushed me to do it, even though I was terrified.
So you went to New York and lived there for years to pursue modeling and kind of the big...
Just about a year.
About a year in the big city. And you were at this place where you were lonely, but then and you're like, and kind of homesick. I want to go home. Yeah. But then part of you was resistant to, well, I don't know if I want to date this guy at home. Like,
right.
A little divided there, and then kind of enter, I don't want to say our young hero, but our young.
In tights, the man in tights. So that sort of fits, right, with the comic book characters. It was perfect timing. It was like a nice, perfect timing. But I did have to make that phone call to my mother. By the way, when I came back, as you suggested, I'm dating a trapeze artist. But my stepfather taught at the college that we had all gone to. So my parents also knew Jose, my now brother-in-law. So she said, if he's anything like his brother, I'm on board with this.
Well, I was going to say, how did she react?
So she was okay.
Well, she hung up the phone and went, we may have gone from the frying pan into the fire. And my stepfather said, Diane, this could be really fun for us. Let's hold off. And then she remembered how much she liked Jose. And so because we had been good friends in college. And so they somehow knew each other. I don't know why, because my stepdad was a choral conductor and Jose didn't sing there, but it's a small school. It was a small liberal arts school.
How nice that your parents
actually supported this. I feel like there was a period of time where running away with the circus was like the parents' dream, and the kids are like, I'm out of here, I'm running away with the circus. They're like, no, you're wasting your life. Why? And your parents are like, oh yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, I know his mother. He's good. He's a nice guy.
They're artists too. They were singers and conductor. But she was like, okay, that's what I'm going to look at this as. If he's like Jose, then I'm fine with it. And they're still very close, Jose and my parents. And it was interesting because I knew vaguely when we were in college, we all liked to eat as late as possible. So the cafeteria closed at 6. So I would always be in the cafeteria with Jose and a couple of other friends. And I vaguely remembered one day having a conversation about his brother being engaged to Lee Merriweather. I don't know if you know Lee Merriweather. She was a Miss America, and she was on Barnaby Jones, and she was an actress. And she was
vaguely.
She was Catwoman in the original Batman movie.
Okay.
There you go.
That I actually do remember.
Right, exactly. So that's
great movie.
He was engaged to her, and he was slightly younger than she was, and he was also 10 years older than my ex-husband. So that made her daughter my ex-husband's age. So he was dating the daughter. And in the cafeteria, I'm going, this is so, wow, she would be like his mother-in-law, sister-in-law if they both got married. And that's kind of what I was focused on. And I did ask him, how did they meet each other? And he told me, teaching them trapeze for Circus of the Stars. So I thought they were gymnasts. Like, I didn't think circus people lived in one place and I just assumed that they constantly traveled. And
that's what I'm waiting for, is when you're going to run away with the circus and go on the road.
No, because they have places, where they stay, and they have a home base. And so they actually met at a Ringling Brothers benefit. And had he said that, I would have known he's either a celebrity or a circus person. And this was Tito, the one who was the most famous in the act and was the first to attempt a quadruple and things. So I ended up vaguely remembering this. This was like maybe my sophomore year, junior year that I heard this story. And it went in one ear and out the other. And that's why I had no clue what on earth he was doing, my college friend at the Big Apple Circus. Like, I couldn't figure it out. I know, it was wild. It was very wild. But it was changed the entire trajectory of my life, as you can imagine, because we took off with the Big Apple Circus. They tour, they're in Manhattan at Christmas time and the Thanksgiving. Then they tour the New England area, the boroughs and the New England area in the summer. And we did that for a couple of years. Then we did Argentina, and we were with the circus there.
Go on the road.
We definitely go on the road.
You went to Argentina, South America.
South America, we did that as well. And that was when I thought I had dysentery, and I found out I was pregnant. It was like, something's wrong with my stomach. I didn't know if I had eaten something or what. And so I came home kind of got that taken care of, and then went back and traveled with Argentina when I was pregnant. And then when we had my son, we did another year or year and a half on the road. And then we said, okay, we need a house without wheels.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to get him going in school.
Yeah.
And so we decided to settle down. But traveling with the circus is sort of like having your own little apartment, and you open the door and it looks different outside. Like every week you move places.
Changing,
Yeah,
yeah.
because you open the door and you forget. You're like, oh, I'm not in Dartmouth anymore. Where am I? New Hampshire.
And you
Okay.
liked that. You liked the novelty
I
and
did.
the new
I think it was sort of the
surroundings.
best of both worlds, because you have this familiar living space with you at all times. So it's like having your own little apartment, but you're just, the outside's changing. So it was like kind of, it's like somebody told me once, I'm on the cusp of Cancer Virgo, that Cancers are homebodies and Leos love to travel. So that's why the person's living room looked like a hotel lobby. For me, it was sort of the best of both. I'm traveling with my home,
Yeah,
just
I
a
can
house
see-
on wheels.
I can see the appeal.
Right.
So did you perform in the circus?
No, I sold popcorn or programs or anything that did not require leaving the ground.
Did you ever get up there with him and
I
try the trapeze?
definitely did. You can't be around it and not try it. But I had a couple of goals. Like I wanted to drop to the net without the ropes, and I wanted to fly, swing without the ropes. I wanted to come off the pedestal by myself. When I finally did that, I went, I'm done.
You never did any of the you flew off and
Catching.
somebody grabbed you.
I didn't, and my son's the catcher now for the trapeze. So I think it's ridiculous that I haven't
Your
done that.
son is in the circus.
He's in this. He's now working at a show in Vegas, but they started a school in our backyard, and so my son was the catcher for the school because we
Okay.
moved here for him to do stunt work eventually. We
So
kind
this we're looking at this moment for you, and now it's gone to another generation. I mean, your son.
Exactly, and
your
he
son
is
grew
fifth
up.
generation.
Your son
circus.
grew up in the circus for so many years.
Yeah, and in more ways than one, because when we moved here, for my ex to get into stunt work, Alex, my son, started working when he was 5. He was on Hook, and he basically was training without realizing it, because he was on the set every day for Circus of the Stars. My ex was one of the trainers for that. So he was training up at Universal Studios, and he'd go over to Feifel's Playland, and they would be doing trapeze, and so he learned really early. And so then eventually became the catcher. But I think it would be so ideal to say I've flown to my son, but
Yeah.
I have 2 choices. I can either do a knee hang, which is like the basic beginner catch, but that requires a little bit of skill that I don't think I have. And then I could do legs across, which means they would just catch my legs, but that means that I'm upside down, and that's a no-go either.
So they catch your legs, and then you're upside down afterwards.
Yes, it's if he
You
did
don't
my
want to
legs
go
across.
upside down.
I do not. You, I think, should go to the backyard, because I think you would enjoy this.
I should go to the backyard.
Go to the backyard and do the trapeze. It is the best
What's the
workout ever,
backyard?
where they have the now trapeze school.
Oh.
And it was in the
Do I look
backyard of
like
our house.
a trapeze artist, gymnast to you?
But you look very fit and in shape, and it would be a fun kind of new workout for you.
I think it would be fun. Yeah.
It works a
I'm
whole
sure
set
it's
of muscles you're not used
incredibly-
to.
I'm sure it's incredibly challenging and difficult, and body spatial awareness.
It's all about
movement
timing.
And yeah.
The air sense, yes. If you have like a natural sense of where you are in the air, that's a good thing. But it's all about, you don't muscle it. It's just timing.
I would not say I have a natural sense of where I am in the air. Or maybe it's just unexplored. Maybe it's my time
Maybe it is.
to run away with
You'd
the
be able to
circus.
tell if you're on the trampoline.
Do we even have the circus anymore?
We do.
Because you were like, oh, these guys, they're performing in Vegas. And I'm like, oh, Cirque du Soleil, like these performances. Has it evolved into that? Like, is there the Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus? I remember going when I was a kid, but
Right. I think Ringling is now closed, I believe. But there's still Circus Vargas, which is kind of the LA, California circus.
Yeah.
And they're all around this area. And they're a one-ring, very similar style circus. And Cirque du Soleil does still have their traveling show. So they do. It's evolved, less animals to no animals, basically. So it's evolved, the
Yeah.
circus.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, here. I have a couple questions for you. Ross.
Okay.
So the first one is,
What can you imagine your life if you didn't do that? If you didn't run away with the circus and run away with Richie? What would you have done?
Sometimes think about it. I'm sure that I would probably be in Lakeland, Florida, working at the local department store or something. You know, it wouldn't be anything that it became. It first of all made me okay with change, because change was happening a lot.
You weren't someone that seeked that out.
Terrified.
Oh, really?
Terrified
At that time?
of change. Terrified.
Oh,
It was,
wow.
and you know, when somebody told me that expression once, the only thing you can count on is change,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, that's horrible. That's just a horrible expression, because I wanted things so much to just stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
My first move from Kentucky to Florida was a huge change for me.
Yeah.
But this was, you had to embrace change on a daily basis.
That was a lifestyle of change.
The whole
Yeah.
lifestyle, and then just daily. You're moving weekly. We were very lucky because they didn't move daily. Some circuses do.
Yeah.
We had a week in this place and a week in the next place, and 2 days to set up, and it was very luxurious, you know, circus living, from what I've been told, because
Yeah.
it was the only one I experienced. But I had to embrace that. I never would have come to California, which was not related to circus. It was related to him wanting to do stunts. But when I got to California, I started doing temp jobs, which was also changing every day. And one of them asked me to stay, and I became a literary agent for 7.5 years in
no
California. So there were these things, I just kept saying yes to things and I was not that person before.
So it sounds like this initial decision to run away with Richie and the circus kind of opened you up to, like you're saying, change, a lifestyle of change,
Right.
which kind of led to this sequence of events of all of these other things that now you're glad you experienced.
Absolutely.
Like,
I keep thinking you're saying running away from Richie, and I'm like, that was later. Every time I hear you, I'm like, no, I didn't run away from him, but I did eventually.
running away
With him, right, exactly.
Yeah.
It was, it created, and then not only that, what I do now, where I'm talking 4 hours weekly, there is a whole lot of stuff to talk about from that history with the circus. And you just, and conversation becomes easy.
What are some of your favorite stories?
Oh my gosh, well, I think people that came to the circus was always kind of interesting. Like we had Tom Cruise come to the Big Apple at Christmas time.
I thought he started in the circus. It's a joke.
I'm like, he did? How do I not know that? No, but he was so interested in it, and afterwards they said, "Do you want to go up? You know, we're going to practice." And he said, "Sure, I'd love to." And the man's fearless, and he went up, and we didn't have what they call the mechanic, which is the belt and the ropes that hold you up. We had nothing.
Oh, wow.
And he's just up there, and if you don't let go of the trapeze at exactly the right place, it can be disastrous. And you have to, like the swing that goes out, you let go at the peak of the swing just before it starts to come back. Otherwise, you go scooting across the net, and you land all cattywampus, and it's a mess. So I was terrified. But Richie was up there explaining it to him, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do, was not the least bit afraid of it. And so we had, you know, things like that all the time. There was Robert De Niro was in the audience one night, and our clown had a gag where he used the audience, and he put a shower cap on them, and he made a fool out of them, basically. And he always went to the same spot. Well, he didn't realize that that's where Robert De Niro was sitting, who came all the time. He was such a good sport about things. So when he realized, and he put the mic on him, and he couldn't change, and he went, "Just say Bob." Because he goes, "What is your name, sir?" "Just say Bob." And so he did the whole thing with the shower cap, the whole bit. I don't think anybody knew except
Who he was.
the reviewer was there. I think Clive Barnes or somebody was in the audience, and he reviewed and said, and Robert De Niro was a very good sport about, you know. But it was just tons of things. We would, if your lights were on, then that meant it was okay to knock on your door and come in and visit. So people were constantly, if you had a grill going, people from it was like a traveling dorm. People would come by and put their stuff on the grill and cook out with you. And one night we sat outside and told ghost stories, and then I was afraid to go to my trailer. Living in a 34-foot trailer, I was terrified, like to go to the bathroom on the other end of it. And it was just, you know, barbecues, there were mud, we were in a place called Pittsfield, and our trailers, we had to put them up on blocks like this. And my son, who was walking way early, shouldn't have opened the door, and we didn't have the latch on the screen because I didn't expect him to be standing up. And he went out, boom, 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 and the steps were so high because we were piled up on these rocks, and he had a big lump on his head, which you would know is better than the other direction. But I just scooped him up, took him to the ER, and in Boston, you have no place to go. You don't have like a regular doctor.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys had kind of a tight-knit group and you rolled all together. I'm like imagining like, what if I would have done something like that? And I think like for a while it would be fun and new, and then I travel a little bit for work. A lot of people travel for work. And I find that now I'm like, I value home. Like I like having a home. I remember in your story you said there was a point your son was young and you guys were like, we need a home. I'm curious, like now, do you seek change now as much as you did then, or do you like it a little bit? Do you value the stability, or
I don't seek it, but I accept it more than I used to, because you have a child who grows up, who gets married, who you have to accept those things, and that's what you raise them to do. I do probably still fight some of it a little bit, but I'm much more accepted. Like now I'm finding myself going, I've lived in this place 10 years. I need a new place. Now I find myself doing that a little bit, whereas before...
Do you have a little itch?
A little bit, which I never did before.
That there was that need of novelty that you were meeting with the circus.
And I still look at trailers and go, oh, I want to see inside. That looks so nice. And my mother looks at me and she goes, we are so different. They're still so appealing to me. I did a show called Everything Must Change, and it was about my dislike of change and learning to accept it. And one of the few changes I like are season changes, and I miss that. But the guy did for the promo a picture of me in an Airstream, which was, I just had a blast. I was like, oh, look.
That kind of life.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask you about this. Speaking of change, so what happened to Richie? What happened with the original...
With the original marriage?
Well, the original reason that opened that door.
Right. Well, it was a tough lifestyle. So my the marriage, when we started traveling, my brother-in-law was with us for the first part of it. And I realized when he left that my ex-husband doesn't talk. And I didn't know that because we were all together, as a group.
How long was that you had been together before, and then you realized that?
When Jose left, we were probably traveling for about 3 months, and then Jose left and he went back home and back to work. And I realized...
Were you married at that point?
Yeah. Oh, I was married before we took off traveling. But I didn't realize because we were always together. And so when he left, I looked at this man and I'm like, he doesn't speak. He doesn't talk. And to this day, like when we were on the road, if I was like, it just didn't feel like talking for some reason, he'd go, why aren't you talking? What's wrong? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. I just didn't feel like talking.
You have described yourself as a talker.
Yes.
So you guys are different in that
Very
regard.
different. But I didn't want to do all of it. Sometimes a response is good, here and there. But he was extremely quiet. And when we first got married, people would come visit us in the trailer. And they were curious who he had married, basically, because they knew the family for years. And he would say, good night, I'm going to bed, which meant he's going to where you are and pulling a curtain and leaving me with these people that I didn't know. So finally I was like, okay, look, I don't know them. I'm enjoying meeting all these people. But if you want to go to bed, then say to them, we're going to bed now. Thank you for visiting. Or stay up with me and talk. Like one of the two, don't leave me, there by myself. But he's just not
It's just
a talker.
kind of the personality things playing out. And
definitely. And that's good for the most part. And I know that that's one of the reasons that attracted him to me, because I was like the color commentator. You get tired of answering these questions like, how did you get started in the circus? Or what does your family do at the circus? And he wouldn't fill in all the good stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're not telling him about this great part. So then I would fill that in, and he loved that because he didn't have to tell the story over and over again.
just not a talker, huh?
No.
But he was a performer.
But his brothers, all of the rest of the family was pretty much talkers. But there was 4 kids, a 10-year break, and then 3 more children. And so maybe that's why he was like the first of the next set.
So let me ask you this. So when you made this decision in your early 20s to kind of run away with him and the circus, what was that giving you? What was that? What did you need at that time? What was that?
I think I needed to
About.
not go back to what I had been in before in Florida. I think I knew that that was not for me. But I knew that once I went there, because I am afraid of change and because I am very slow to kind of make a move, that once I did my New York thing and got back to Florida, that I probably would never leave again.
And part of you intuitively knew you didn't want that.
I knew that I was terrified of that.
That Florida, you were really terrified of that.
Yeah, I did not want to go back to that.
Terrified. What would that have meant if you did that? What were you so afraid of?
I think it meant that I wouldn't be achieving any of the things that I wanted to achieve. I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to move on. I wanted to do something bigger.
What were the things that you wanted to achieve?
I definitely wanted to do something more exciting in the entertainment world. At the time I was doing acting. I'd been a theater major.
Exciting and entertainment in Florida was not exciting, and you didn't have the opportunity for entertainment.
No, I mean, you could travel to Orlando and do something at Disney World, I guess, but there wasn't the opportunity that there is in California.
New York or LA.
Yeah. And I knew that after living in New York, I kind of knew that California was someplace that I wanted to go. But that wasn't even an option initially. It was also a way to stay in New York and stay in that area, and I loved it. And I was lonely there, but this would be staying there with a family. You know, it was different.
I see. So then you could get in
Being in
New
the
York and you
the
could
family.
have company and
Right. And I just thought, if I had gone back to Florida, I knew that there was not any kind of work there that I was really interested in doing. So it would have meant that I was unhappy in a job and unhappy in a place. And I didn't want to, I mean, Lakeland's a beautiful place and it was a great place to go to school, but it was not a place that I wanted to stay.
You sound very clear that you were avoiding Florida was a big part of this decision.
Yes, I think going back to that same old thing that I had been doing was definitely not something that I wanted to do.
Do you feel like you've always been kind of a performer kind of person since you were little? And when did all of that start?
At 3, my mother's a singer, and she was a singer soloist, and my stepfather was the organist choir master of a church and the local synagogue in town. And so I had a little repertoire at 3, and they would put me up at choir practice to sing.
Do you still have this? Can we hear it? It sounds like your parents were both musical. Your mother sang and your father played the organ, and you had a little show you would do.
I did. I had I used the term repertoire loosely. I think I had 3 songs, but there was one in French that was my favorite.
I want to hear it.
Okay, it was from I think it's from the musical South Pacific, and it went a little like this. Dites-moi pourquoi la vie est belle. Dites-moi pourquoi la vie est gaie. Dites-moi pourquoi, chère mademoiselle, est-ce que parce que vous m'aimez?
Oh, that's lovely.
That was my big moment.
And I'm imagining you as a 3-year-old girl singing that. What does it mean?
I just remember that my stepfather was telling me that this part, chère mademoiselle, was beautiful woman, and I have no idea what the rest of it means. I didn't do my due diligence as a 3-year-old to learn what the lyrics meant. Now I would
3.
do that.
Yeah, you're 3.
I learn what the lyrics. I'm learning something in Portuguese, and I'm learning what every word means. So.
We need to wrap up in a second. I want to go back into these 2 moments that I've been thinking about. And I want you to describe to me when he opened that door, almost in slow motion, like details of what you saw, and then I want to know what you felt.
Okay, so.
Like slow-mo.
He opened the trailer, which wasn't very slow, actually. He kind of like slammed it open, but slow-mo would be, I think I started here because you're up above.
Yeah.
So I was at shoes, doing the whole up motion thing, thinking, wow, he's got on like one of those long dress coats.
Yeah, what did you see? So you saw his shoes. What
I
kind
saw
of shoes
dark
did he have?
pants, shiny shoes, which is a good thing.
What color?
Black.
Yeah.
Black pants. I think it was like a navy blue overcoat, which I thought was very cool. It was cold. It was winter.
Okay.
And all the way up, and then all of a sudden I saw the bottom of a scarf, which was the Monte Carlo Circus scarf. They won an award at Monte Carlo. So there was a clown, and it said Monte Carlo, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. He's got like a scarf around his neck, double-breasted sport coat, tie, shirt, which I'm a sucker for men in suits anyway. And then I kept going, and this was this gorgeous, dark Latin man.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of like, wow.
Was he smiling? What was he doing? He opened, and did he kind of blank look at you? Like, what are you doing? Who are you?
No,
What?
I think he smiled too. It was interesting that he was the one that opened the door, but yeah, he definitely smiled.
What was the energy you got? From
The
him?
energy was, you know how you could just tell sometimes when there's two people you could tell by the look on their face that two people are very interested in each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was instantaneous, and that's only happened to me maybe a couple of times in my life.
Now, describe to me what you're feeling as you're doing this again.
What I was feeling was, oh wow, he's really cute. I hope he's single, and I hope that's Jose's brother, because I kind of knew it was, but I wasn't positive who I was meeting and who was opening the door. And I kind of knew also because of the Monte Carlo, circus. But it was so comfortable immediately. There was something about him that was vastly different than anybody I'd been around before. And I said he was quiet, but he was also very calming. And so he had that kind of effect on me, which is not easy to have on me, to the point that when we were married, he would say, "What shoes are you going to wear?" And my shoes were like all in the bottom of the closet. And he would find the match for me, for the other shoe, because I would usually have one out, not the other, so that
really kind of
I wouldn't be late. But he wasn't pushing me.
nice, calming. So this moment where you see this well-dressed, handsome Latin man in a suit who you immediately connect with, and this is the moment that I'm going to run away. I'm going to run away with this man.
Right. I pretty much knew that something was going to happen.
You said the word sealed the deal before.
Right.
So I want you to describe to me the setting and what of that, which really, I think the moment began right here when you met him, and then it really concluded with that. That was where you were certain you were done, you made that decision.
Right.
So tell me, where were you sitting, what were you seeing? Because it sounded like it all culminated in his performance in the trapeze, right?
Did.
And at the end of that, then you were like, I'm running away with the circus.
Yep. Definitely. I had watched the entire show and loved every moment of it. They were the finale. And I was
Where are you sitting?
up in the
Yeah.
bleachers. So
Okay.
I'm up in the bleachers, which is sort of more level with where they are.
Is it a good
they're
seat?
up high. It was a very good seat, especially for trapeze. He wasn't stupid. He put me where I'd have a good view of
I
him.
figured.
So I had a great view of the
Him in
trapeze.
his tights.
Exactly. And so I'm obviously very attracted to performers. That's what I was around, and that's what I do. And they're charismatic, and it's probably a mistake most of the time. But I didn't remember. I had maybe even seen them when I was a kid with Ringling. I don't know. But not my husband, but the older part of the family. And so I was watching them. I can't even explain, but when they change places, if they're standing on a pedestal and one comes back from a trick, he would flip her around so that, boom, now he's in the middle and she's over here. And I was like, that is so cool. And the way they just carried themselves. And I thought, I don't even care if they do a trick. I want to see them just change places on the pedestal. I'd rather see that family with their charisma, the Gayonas, do one somersault than somebody else do 4. And I literally went, I mean, you can, the charisma, when you can feel charisma, the people have it, and they had it. And I was like, wow. And what I meant by seal the deal was, I think that was just like sort of then the piece de resistance, like I couldn't resist.
That's when you were done. So you said you were wowed, or give me a word to describe that.
I was just
final certainty of
finished. It was over. It was a done deal.
Certainty.
Like me, yeah. I was absolutely certain that I was extremely interested in him, extremely attracted to him, and the rest of it was just a bonus. That it was all interesting and I
seeing
thought,
him perform.
Seeing him perform
was
was sealed the deal. Yeah.
Where you were like, I'm gonna
Definitely. I'm
go
like,
with this guy.
yeah. It was amazing because I'd already felt it, And then throughout the show, he would come and check on me and see how I was doing. But it's scary because not only am I, and we got married, and the next day we were going to be traveling with the circus. We were taking off in a caravan.
Wow. So much for honeymoon.
Right, exactly. So, and then his family called and they said we're not quite ready because we were all caravanning to New York, so we had one more night. But I had thrown all my clothes in this trailer, and I like clothes, and they don't fit in a trailer. I also like having.
You got to downsize on the road.
Oh my gosh! And I didn't. He was so sweet about it. Like he just let me shove all this stuff in the closet, and he had like maybe this much stuff, and I had shoes everywhere, and I didn't know. You know, it was like I need 2 closets. I don't do trailer closets very well, and I'd choose for every. When we traveled to Argentina, I had a full, enormous bag filled with shoes at the bottom. And he didn't tell me, you can't take all those shoes.
So hard to imagine life on the road like that.
Yeah.
What an adventure you had that all started with that moment.
It definitely was, which then led to literary agency, great stories for hosting, and a great way to, I love people. So it's a great way to meet people.
The rest of your life.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
You seem pretty happy with that.
Yes. And if you say to somebody, oh, I married a trapeze artist, you know, there's no way you're not going to have a conversation.
This has been great. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Can you close us out?
I would love to. So we rhyme, Larry and Keri. So thank you for joining Keri and Larry on Life Can Change in a Moment.
It's pretty crazy because I feel like life is so interesting in which there's 2 or multiple different chapters, and you look at one and you're like, how the hell did I get here from over there? And I think that was this moment.